Hi everyone, welcome back to King Paul Myers. I'm Ariadna.
And I'm Dylan.
Darn it, you took it.
I took it.
We were joking back and forth offline before we hit record, basically, to start the episode like demons, because guess what today's topic is?
Angels.
Angels. Oh, yes, please. That's actually coming up, but not today's topic, though.
It is not today's topic.
No.
We're talking about demons today. Demons. I'm going to learn about demons from our wonderful friend, Sam from Sam So Spooky. Hello,
Yay!
Sam.
Hi. Hello.
There you go. She also tried to do it.
Should we all do demon voices this entire time? Or will
No, that's gonna hurt our throats.
It's gonna, yeah, exactly. No, we're all gonna need like hot tea after this.
I have cough drops.
Just all the time. If you're listening to us, you should know by now. This is our 4th episode in our hashtag KPM Supernatural series. Every other Tuesday, we have the beautiful Sam from Sam So Spooky, and we talk about paranormal stuff, like, you know, any normal human being does, basically.
Yeah, super normal. Yeah.
Exactly. See, supernatural, super normal. There you go. Of course. So today's topic is demons and demonology, and Sam's gonna share a few of those stories with us. But before we start, what's demon? How do you define a demon?
So, a demon is defined as an evil spirit or devil, especially one thought to possess a person or act as a tormentor of hell. It's derived from the Greek word daemon, which means a supernatural spirit or being. Though it has commonly been associated with an evil or malevolent spirit, the term originally meant a spiritual being that influenced a person's character. So even, for example, on that last note, Plato, in some of his early works, he mentions the word, but as like, and when he says it, he's referencing like divine inspiration.
Okay.
So demon doesn't always mean
An
what
evil
it does
thing.
to us
Exactly.
now.
Was it probably the church that made it?
Yeah,
that
so
connotation?
Christianity had a huge influence on the way we view demons and hell and Lucifer and Satan. A lot of it, like for example, different statues, like in Roman times, that represented different pagan gods. The Christians came in, took one look at them, and they were like, we're going to classify these now as demons. And it was all part of their trying to switch the context and view things differently. They affected that in, so many different ways. One of the things I wanted to mention here is as we go through religion and demons, for anybody listening, I'm not looking to offend any one person. I do not claim to know everything in the world because information is changing all the time. And with the internet, there's also a lot of misinformation. So if I misquote anything, please let me know. But otherwise, on that note, I wanted to elaborate on a little bit of semiotics because I can. So when I was in college, I took a class called Monster Theory. And
Which is the best class ever, definitely.
It is the best class ever.
You told us a little bit about this in our very first episode together, yes. October 31st, 2020, our Halloween episode talking about Halloween franchise. So at the end of that episode, she talks a little bit about this as well. So if anybody's interested, go back to that episode. And then just simply you've mentioned it here and there, but now we get to know a little bit more. So super excited about that.
God, I love this class. It was my favorite class in all of college. The professor, Michael Kemmers, he's amazing. There's a few books he actually wrote on monsters that I still have yet to buy. But
that's so cool when your teacher writes books about this stuff.
Oh my God, he's a hilarious man too. In my notes, I would write down the things he would say, like he would say things like, "Aha! I have a class full of nerds. I am the Goblin King." He was amazing. And so one of the things that he talks about with semiotics is this thing called the glyph and the hierophant. So the glyph is an image and the hierophant is the manifestation of that image, or one of the ways I view that is the evolution of that image. This can also be called the signifier or the signified. So signifier is that original thing. Signified is kind of what it evolves into. And so here's a really quick, obvious example, because usually this has to do with symbols and their interpretations of those symbols, would be the Nazi symbol, right? You're the immediate thing that comes to mind is you're like Hitler, Nazis, but that symbol didn't originally belong to Hitler and the Nazis. That's originally a symbol from Buddhism, and it's different. It's turned this way. Nazis took that same symbol and turned it this way. So in this case, the glyph would be the Buddhist symbol of it. The hierophant would be what it became after, or what you associate with it, which is Nazis. So the whole point of going through this is talking about how an image evolves over time and through media, and you're rewriting it over and over again. So for example, different writings of the Bible, people are rewriting different parts of it, or you have different interpretations of it. Same thing goes for classic monsters like Dracula, Frankenstein. But in this case, the main reason I bring it up is the evolution of how we view demons and Satan. So, of course, you have how it's originally viewed, and then it evolves into kind of what we look at today. Your immediate thought is a red dude with pointy horns.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly, because why the F not?
Yeah. So that's, as we talk about demons, I want our viewers to just keep that in mind, that images and their meanings evolve over time.
Exactly. We also talked really briefly about this when we talked about Krampus. We did another episode with you.
Yes.
He's
apparently considered a demon.
Yeah, exactly. December 4th. I think that was the episode 18 with you. 18 or 19. So it's the following. December 11th. There you go. See, I'm good with remembering dates. And for those who are just wanting to know a little bit more about Krampus, and you guys did talk about Black Christmas. What's it called? A Black Christmas?
No, Black Christmas.
As well. The point being, we talked about Krampus in that episode, obviously, for the movie, but the meaning behind it, evil.
Exactly.
Where it comes in, like Christianity. Oh, goodness.
Christianity.
Okay, that word. And yeah, I just wanted to refer again because it was a really good episode and we learned a lot there as well.
Yes, agreed. So that is pretty much covers most of what I had to say about the glyph and the hierophant, or signifier and signified. That's the other way to know about it. So evolution of demons over time. So they weren't always as they appeared to be. In a lot of early renditions of Satan, I mean, for example, the very first thing written about him, I guess, in the Bible is he's a fallen angel. You know, like he wasn't a demon. He was an angel of God. He was beautiful, and he fell from heaven. And so he's not supposed to appear evil either. He's supposed to appear as one of the most beautiful things you've ever seen. And the other rendition of him is him as the snake in the Garden of Eden. So and then he evolves over time from this image of an angel to using the word Lucifer, using the term morning star, and then eventually Satan. Some people also think Satan's supposed to be like Beelzebub as well. And what was the other one? Moloch. But other things will tell you, oh, those are separate demons.
Oh, okay. I did not know that.
I would say out of the little that I know about, I don't even want to know. I mean, goodness gracious. I don't even want to say him, but I guess the character or the you know what I'm trying to say? It's like, essentially with everything that you were saying and how our image changes throughout the whole sense of time.
Yeah.
The fact that we don't really know much about him particularly. That's why I don't want to put him as under a him, if that makes any sense at all. That's where I was kind of going with that sentence. But you just got me thinking. Sorry, continue.
You could even go off of, like, I think this will help you guys out a little bit, is the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina is one of the most recent renditions of Lucifer.
Exactly, yeah.
It's the horror comedy with Luke Cook.
Yeah. So I was thinking about him. I was thinking about different characters within Sabrina. I was thinking even about the TV show, the commercial that came out for Match.com. and it was
so good.
It's a really, I don't know if you've seen.
Oh, I've seen it. I love
Yeah.
that Taylor Swift the person who directed the commercial is Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Taylor Swift, can I use your song for this? And I'm so happy she said yes. Like Taylor Swift was like, yes, please use my song.
Exactly.
Absolutely what I want it to be for.
I feel like that's where my train of thoughts were coming from, because it's the first two things that popped up, because of course they're very recent.
Back when I was a kid, when I think of the devil, sometimes I think of Bedazzled.
Who?
With it's a movie. Guy gets 7 wishes from the devil, and the devil is a female, and she's like, she starts giving all of her names, and she's like the Prince of Darkness. Well, the Princess of Darkness.
That's exactly what I was talking about. That's where I got lost train and I can't speak anymore. I got lost in my thoughts because it doesn't have to be male either.
It's it.
It's it.
I also pictured Tim Curry.
I need to see it. I need to see it. I need to see it. He did put on so much makeup just for me.
Just for me.
Oh, I need to see that.
So moving forward, we do want to talk about, especially with Dylan, because he loves demons. So what else do you know about demons?
Well, my love for demons, I mean, I've always loved, once again, darkness and the supernatural. But CBS did a show last year called Evil, and it really gives you a introductory to like the hierarchy of hell. And I'm like, wait, there's a hierarchy? I thought you were all just demons. Like, I didn't realize there was a ranking system, or some had more power.
Supernatural will immediately think of that as well, that there's a hierarchy of hell.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that was just the coolest thing. And then they used this term demonology. I'm like, wait, what? I thought once again they were just demons. And there's actually a great deal of literature out there telling you about these demons, their history, what they do, their names. So this is, I'm very fresh to this, but I'm very excited to learn about this kind of stuff because it's always really been up my alley.
Yeah, in literature, you also have the Divine Comedy, Dante's Inferno, where he describes the different layers of hell, which Chilling Adventures of Sabrina also touches on.
It does. And The Good Place. So random, I know. Have you watched The Good Place?
Only the first 2 seasons.
All right, so he hasn't just yet, because once again, he has a long list of things he needs to watch. And I did watch The Good Place. I love Kristen Bell and the guy as well. I forgot his name right now, but still, they also have hierarchy and then different ways of like different categories and things like that. And that's pure comedy, obviously. That's nothing scary about that show. And once again, it's always it's a constant theme because that's what we know about it, essentially speaking.
It's interesting too, because you kind of have a similar thing for heaven that you would for hell. You have for heaven, you would have God, the archangels, the other angels he made below that one that all represent different types of things. And then in hell, you have arguably either Lucifer first, or some will say Asmodeus is the king of all demons. Typically in Jewish legend, according to the apocryphal book of, I hope I say this right, Tobit Asmodeus. So Hebrew in Asmodei, he's like the king of all demons, which I would think it would be Lucifer, but maybe not. Maybe you'd appoint someone else. And then you'd have also like Sabrina will say like there's the 3 kings of hell, which is supposed to be a mockery of the 3 wise men who came and brought gifts to Jesus, which a lot of things for hell and Lucifer and Satan is all supposed to be a mockery of the things that God and Jesus did.
Exactly what I was referring to, including not only against Sabrina, of course, we're going to talk about that show a lot, but also The Good Place. It has so many references of like what's heaven, what's hell, and how both of them look, and it's a lot of mockery, like you said. Oh, I lost my thought again because you reminded me of something in particular. I feel like you in the last episode, you're like, wait.
Well, as you're thinking about that, Sam, I never thought about, once again, in Sabrina, the 3 wise men, and you have the 3 kings of hell.
Yeah.
They're all about pissing off heaven. It's
I mean, and then she goes through to perform those blasphemous acts of Jesus, like when she with the blind, a mockery of the Nazarene, of when she does the suicide thing. It's all supposed to be undoing things Jesus did to bring on the apocalypse. The other thing I was going to say is, which could be an interesting thing for us to talk about in this episode, is have you guys ever read stories about people in real life who had like died for a minute or two, and they talk about either experiencing hell or heaven and what that was like? Because I have.
I've read a bunch of stories, seen a bunch of different things. Before we continue, I remembered what I was going to say, and that was mainly what's interesting that we're not going to talk a lot about this episode because we have other different topics to talk about. But like you said, religion has a lot of different saying. So when you were explaining earlier on about like Buddhism and like all these sorts of things, like right now we're just really clearly talking about like the Christian point of view, which once again for me is really, it's really, I don't want to say new. Yeah, well, yes, because it's like the whole, not even Santa Claus, but you know what I mean? Like you only have that kind of image in mind and that's pretty much it. I'm like, there's so many different ways. And I also find that really interesting. Once again, we have so many different topics for this one in particular that we can like, this will be over an hour long by all means. But yeah, that's what I meant to say earlier on. So you were saying the stories about people who come back to life, basically.
Yeah. So I remember reading this story about a guy who wanted to commit suicide. He didn't want to live anymore. He went and parked his car someplace random, took a bunch of drugs, was hoping to die. But what ended up happening is he went to hell. Well, he came back. He survived. And he describes visiting hell, and what hell is different for every person, I believe, just as is heaven from all the things you read. There are some common denominators. Like, obviously, if it's heaven, it's going to feel like light and peace. And if it's hell, it's going to feel dark and terrible. And so everyone describes it differently. But this guy, what was interesting and always stuck in my mind is he talked about hell being that he saw every single person he had ever hurt in his life, and they were all yelling at him and telling him how he hurt them and like in his face about it. So that was one of the descriptions of hell I have heard of, which is really interesting.
I think that is once again quite it's quite interesting because much like you said, I feel like heaven and hell are different for everybody. They're, in my book, I feel like they kind of don't exist in my point of view, for example, because when we leave this earth, we don't leave it because we're going to go to heaven or hell. But once again, I feel like that's more into spirituality. What?
Because you said that, now I have to say this. Some people argue that earth is hell.
For example, yeah, exactly. So like for me, I feel like I'm going to be, like you were saying in the last episode, the black sheep of the family here, because my point of view is completely different than what's quote unquote common. Do I know about these things? Yeah, of course, because I'm interested about these things. And I always like to learn, like what Dylan was saying at the beginning of the episode, knowledge is power, and that's always fun. But other than that, another thing that you were saying with heaven and hell,
how it's always a mockery of heaven.
Yeah, not only that, it's like you make up your own. It reminds me, it's so weird to say again, right? It's like saying the good place. It has nothing to do with like anything scary. We mentioned it in one of our episodes, Soul. It has nothing to do with demons by any means, but it's one of those movies that talks a little bit or hints a little bit about what happens in the afterlife. So I have like flashbacks without any spoilers because the movie's still pretty new, so I want them to watch it, of course. But yeah, you guys can continue on without a doubt.
Okay. But it's good to have an out of the box perspective.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's very fresh. No, it sounded like you were like, I'm out of the box. I don't believe
no,
this.
No,
that's good.
Cool. I feel off today, but that's because my aura and my general energy today feels off, not because of the conversation.
Well, then get your energy back.
Go
get it. It's in the drawer.
It's in the drawer. Binks has it, or Kat has it.
they have their own different interpretations of what heaven, hell, or could be, what's real, what's not. Everything is up for interpretation, and people will believe different things based off their experiences. Like, for example, I believe in ghosts. Why do I believe in ghosts? Because I've experienced ghosts, therefore I have reason to believe it. But not everyone has had that experience, and therefore they're totally in their right to not believe it. And the same thing applies to heaven and hell here. You have every right to have a different perspective on it. And I honestly, like, I know I'm going to live a long time. I know that sounds cocky to say, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to live a long time. God's not going to kill me off anytime soon yet. And
but it's true, because you and me have talked about these things in a more spiritual kind of way, because we
yeah,
do
like
both
from my
believe in
more
ghosts, we
spiritual
believe in
side.
ancestors, angels, and once again, nothing
Yeah.
to do with demonology, but we will talk about it in future episodes. So it does lead to, there's a sense of knowing.
Yeah. But what I was leading up to with it was that, like, when I do finally die, if I don't die like very quickly saving somebody else, if I like get to die like peacefully in my bed, I really hope my last words are this is planned. My last words are going to be into the great unknown. I want those to be my last words, into the great unknown, because as someone who loves like knowledge and retaining everything possible, I'm finally going to get to learn the fucking secret. And so most people are scared to death. I'm going to be excited because I'm going to be like, I get to finally know, like I'm going to die and they'll be like, this was the right thing, or like everybody was right, or some shit like that. And they're like, I'm in the world now. That's so cool.
I'm laughing not at you, but Into the Unknown is a Frozen 2 song, so the first thing
don't ruin it for me.
You just ruined her last words.
It's fine. It's
I
okay.
love it.
I love that song though. It's a pretty good song.
Your grandkid's gonna pull it up.
Yeah, exactly.
Into the my backup is I'm finally gonna learn the secret. I'm gonna whisper that in my grandchild's ear, and then
exactly.
I actually have my last words planned out too. Once again, from Stephen King. He says it before falling to his death. Go then. There are other worlds than these. So I'm gonna that. Someone in the room will be like, go then. There are other worlds than these. I'll be like, Grandpa, why are you sending me away?
I once read this list of all like famous people's like very last words they said, and like then people like just kind of started adding to the thread like other things like that they've heard family members say, or like maybe first words. And there was this one person on the thread who mentioned that their very first word they ever said in their life was quote, and everybody was on them like, on God, if your last word when you die is not unquote, you are missing an opportunity.
That is a very random first word, but once again, I feel like it's meant to be. Much like you said, like you're gonna live a long, happy life. Like it was meant to be that person's first word happens to be quote.
Yes. So we're over here talking about life and death, but let's talk about other realms, demons.
Demons in the underworld.
Different versions of demons. Or do you want me to start going into how you might know you might have a demon in your home?
Professor Sam, you take this wherever you want to. I am ready to learn.
For those who just tuning in, I'm always like mini commercials in between. Seriously though. If you haven't heard the first episode, you should definitely go do so, because we did talk about ghosts and what was it, like signs that ghosts are in your house.
Yes.
And things like that. So if you're interested about that one as well, go back to the first episode way back when. And but now demons, take the lead, take it away, Mrs. Sam.
All right, so this is going to be kind of that segue where what's different between your ghost haunting and how you know you might have a demon. So with a demon, you have a lot of your classic precursor ghost stuff, you know, strange noises, strange smells, things moving, maybe seeing things out of the corner of your eye. However, there are a few things added onto that make it more intense experience, is how I would describe it. More intense and dark. So for example, aside from things moving around, you might find coins randomly falling from your ceiling, or water dripping on you out of nowhere. Like you have water dripping on you, but you look up and there's nothing, there's no leak. So how did it get on you? And you're in your house, you know? aside from like regular hearing of noises, you're more likely to hear them of a demonic nature. So scratching, growling, banging, hearing somebody whispering your name a lot, they're going to call out to you a lot because they're trying to get your attention, or they can say kind of bad things to you, like you're going to die, for example, trying to make you scared. And the reason they try to make you scared is they feed off of your negativity. So a mischievous spirit is one thing, a demon is another. A demon's trying to suck the energy out of you. And so you're going to feel emotional changes. You're going to feel very negative, maybe even sick. You're going to feel depressed. You're going to start to withdraw from people and be very isolated. I want to make a mental note here to our viewers. There's a very fine line between having depression or mental illness and a demon. Please consult your medical doctor before going to a witch shop and asking if you have a demon. Anyways. So one of the other things is, aside from regular smells, so a ghost is going to have a more of a regular scent, like a perfume or a cigar, maybe something a little more familiar. A demon is not going to be like that. A demon is going to smell oftentimes like rotting meat or trash. Sometimes people will describe it as smelling sulfur or rotting eggs. It's going to smell bad and horrible, and it's going to be very strong. I've even had friends describe encountering skinwalkers, which is a Native American legend, about how they can smell like rotting meat, or like demons in your house. It's always kind of a similar smell. And another thing is going to be the air is going to feel different. The air is going to feel very heavy and oppressive. You're going to feel it instantly the second you walk in. Like when we talked about ghost, we talked about having a gut feeling or an eerie feeling. Okay, your gut feeling isn't just going to be the only thing you feel. You're going to walk in and you're going to feel this heavy, oppressive air all around you. Like it's going to feel bad, and it's going to make you feel bad. And they're going to they want to drain you. They want to wear you down. So they're going to do other things like they want to attack you in your sleep, because in your sleep, you're at your most vulnerable. So what they do is you're going to have nightmares and sleep paralysis, because if you're not getting sleep and you're not getting peace and rest, again, this is another tactic of a demon to wear you down, make you feel more negative and depressed so they can continue to feed off of your energy. They'll even cause physical harm to you, pulling your hair, pushing you downstairs, which, I mean, that's definitely where it starts to cross the line, is when they start physically hurting you or your loved ones. This has been said in a lot of people's experiences of demons with their families and their homes, is they start to really get scared when people start getting hurt. So I want to go into more of the sleep paralysis, but before I do, if you feel like you have a demon in your home, please consult a paranormal professional or a member of the clergy.
Exactly. We're definitely interested in your stories, not only Sam's, of course, but our viewers in this case, our KPM fam. We started the series.
I was gonna say, if you've been possessed, please let us know.
Exactly. We started the series because a lot of you out there have shared stories with us through DMs, and not only of this extent, of course, but just different things of the supernatural. So that's why we're here as well, to know more about it and just like share these kind of stories. And as you were speaking, once again, it did remind me, like we said previously, the TV show Evil. So I feel like that's the most recent TV show that we can think of, says and go they say a lot of the things that you were saying. They go through a lot of the things that you were talking about, without a doubt.
Professor Sam, may I ask a question?
Yes.
I hope I'm not jumping ahead, but it's always in Hollywood. Did Hollywood make this up? I don't know. You always see that they talk about, like, the Exorcist or whomever is trying to find out the demon's name. Is that real? Is that Hollywood BS? Do you?
So I don't know enough about particularly exorcisms to tell you whether or not that's important, because as far as I know, what's the extent of my knowledge is that no matter what the demon's name is, the exorcism is still going to be the same process.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how relevant knowing the name is.
Okay.
I think a lot of times in pop culture, you see them trying to find out the name because the name is relevant to the plot in some way.
Exactly. And especially because they're trying to, not only plot-wise, of course, but they're trying to be like, oh, it could be one of the, if you lived in a old house or even a new house, but someone died in the house. So it could be something like that of the sort, or someone from their past life. But once again, that goes really much into the plot. So I definitely agree with Sam.
Because I have seen it used as a way of, that's how you defeat the demon. You say its name. And
I think demons in reality are way too powerful to be like, okay, you know my name.
Exactly. Oh, you know who I am, and that's pretty much it. No, that's definitely feels like Hollywood-esque, which makes sense, obviously.
Yeah, or
to
like
sugarcoat some things like that, because I feel like that's.
To be fair, they can trick you, like the demon in Sabrina. Remember, he says a name, and she thinks that she's figured it out, and then Ambrose is like, but demons are funny and tricksters. He
Exactly.
gave an anagram for ice cream.
Those scamps.
You guys ever hear about Annalise Michelle, or maybe it's Annalise Michelle?
I have not.
She was a woman who underwent 67 exorcisms before she died.
67.
Yep. And this wasn't like, you know, super long ago. This was like in the 60s or 70s. But basically, like, I want to say this had to do a little bit with, I hope I say this right, Munchausen syndrome, which is basically what a parent kind of projects onto their child, saying they're ill and they have all these illnesses and making them go through things as such. I think this was a similar situation where I want to say the mom and maybe the dad thought that the daughter was possessed and kept making her undergo exorcisms, but they put her through so many that like what she went through killed her. The exorcisms killed her.
Oh my God.
Yeah, pretty insane. If anyone ever wants to look up more about that. Of course, we have to mention the classic movie The Exorcist with
of course.
Linda Blair as Regan.
So
Did you watch it?
Yes, many times. That's like a perfect movie for me. I mean, that's just absolutely outstanding.
They say that the stairs in that movie are actually like haunted or cursed because while filming the movie, people died on those stairs. The same ones that the priest falls down.
And didn't like the set catch fire as well, or?
I think so, yeah. Or maybe that was The Omen.
It was one of those.
It was one of them.
That's true, though. You told me about one of them. I just don't remember which one.
So, talking about exorcisms, you know, things obviously meant to exorcise demons, but circling a little bit back to the sleep paralysis, I want to mention a documentary called The Nightmare. Came out in 2015. It's on Netflix. And The Nightmare talks about what sleep paralysis is and has different people share their sleep paralysis experiences. It's not, if you are easily scared, I do not recommend watching this movie at night before you go to bed.
A documentary about sleep paralysis before
or
bed.
if you experience sleep paralysis in real life, again, maybe not a good idea to watch this.
So it's a documentary?
Yeah, documentary.
Yeah,
okay.
They share stories about their past encounters with sleep paralysis.
Yeah, seeing that in The Haunting of Hill House was like, oh my God, that is the worst thing. Like
it's terrifying from what everybody describes. And in case the viewers don't know what sleep paralysis is, it's basically when you are awake but you can't move your body and you feel paralyzed, and usually you end up hallucinating that there is something either sitting on your chest or something in the room, and that thing will either stand there or will like try to do something to you. It is not a fun experience
at all.
Yes.
So Sam, you have some stories about sleep paralysis for us?
I do. I have had a few sleep paralysis experiences in my time. About four, three really in particular. One of which was apparently an encounter with a demon. So that's fun.
Oh, that's very fun.
Yeah. I'm very lucky that it didn't end up being more as it is for a lot of other people who either have nightmares or sleep paralysis almost every night. I experienced my sleep paralysis, oddly enough, when my depression was at some of its worst, and I mean, I just have to kind of say I was suicidal, because I have that kind of depression, and it's kind of falls into what we mentioned earlier with demons, kind of feeding off your negativity and your being low. That's kind of how it felt since that's when I experienced it. And another thing about that is people will argue that sleep paralysis are spirits who feed off of your energy, that like when they're pressing you down and you can't move, that's them like holding you down and sucking out your energy. But so what ends up happening is these three experiences I'm going to talk about. The third one, the last one I had, was the demon. So we're going to lead up to it. The first two I actually had were at my mother's house. They have a lake house up at Bass Lake, and that's where I was staying when this happened. I was living in there. There's a room in the garage that was converted, like added in to have an extra room, and I was staying in there. And this was actually right after I also had a horrible near-death experience. So
Good
yeah,
God.
I was in a very terrible car crash where a guy hit me from behind and my car went off a cliff.
Sam.
I laugh now, but basically what happened was my car flipped vertically first and then rolled horizontally to the bottom of a cliff, through a barbed wire fence and into some field. I was very lucky. I survived. My car did not. I got out of it with just a scratch, actually. I had stitches through a little scratch through my eyebrow. The guy in the ambulance actually said, "You should buy a lottery ticket," which I never did. Probably still should.
You are due, goddamn.
That good car. I mean, for keeping you safe.
Oh yeah, if you need to know the type of car, that was a 2002 Honda CR-V, who I named Bubs. So Bubs was a good car.
Bubs for the win.
Yeah. So this was actually right after that, because basically after I had that experience, I was like, death can come to me anytime. I'd already experienced plenty of death around me. This was like kind of the first time in my life it had happened more towards me. And so I only wanted to be around my family. So I moved back home and I was living with my family. But I was also severely depressed. My depression became very worse. I just kind of felt like I was never going to achieve my dreams in life. I barely graduated from college a few months before, so I was a little bit directionless. And unfortunately, as much as I love my parents, things between my mom and I at that time were very distant and not good. So I was becoming very isolated in that room in the garage. So I was kind of the perfect prey at that time for some sleep paralysis, especially with my being also very sensitive to spiritual side. And what had happened, my very first experience was, there's a set of bunk beds in this room, and then there's a regular bed. Okay. So I was on the bottom bunk and I was sleeping on my side facing the wall, and I felt somebody crawl into bed with me, and you can feel the depression in the bed, and like someone was against my back. And I thought that was really strange, because you're kind of, with sleep paralysis, you kind of feel like you're in a bit of a dream state, but you're also awake. It's very odd. You don't always immediately realize it's happening in real time. And then I felt whatever this thing was behind me started to like not feel good. It felt like a bad thing. And like the energy. And then all of a sudden there was this pressure, like it was pushing onto me and pushing me down from like behind. So it was kind of like this.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the fuck? And finally, when I was able to muster up enough strength, I threw my arm back. And as I threw back in the bed, it was like one of those moments in a movie where you look around a dark, silent room and there's nothing there. Yeah, that was my very first experience. My second one got more intense, where I was sleeping in the regular bed in this room now. I had switched beds. I'm on the regular queen bed now. And it started off kind of like a dream where I saw somebody open the door and come into the room, but it wasn't like a defined figure. It was like a silhouette with no defining features, almost like when you see somebody put on like a full body suit, you know? And it was not totally black. It was more like a grayish white, like almost alien. And I watched it open the door and come into the room. I watched it walk past the end of the bed to my side of the bed. And then both in my dream and kind of what actually happened is it put one hand on each side of my head. And then it went to turn my head like this, like to snap my neck. And I woke up like doing a whiplash in my bed. Like I woke up to myself turning my head really fast. And then, you know, it's kind of one of those moments when you wake up a weird way, you kind of pause and you're like, what the fuck just happened? And again, I look around and I'm in an empty room.
Jesus.
Yeah, it was really creepy and intense. I had a very hard time going back to sleep after that one.
Yeah, clearly. Good God.
Yeah. So I feel like I lucked out because I hear what other people talk about in their sleep paralysis experiences. And I'm like, holy fuck, like I would die if that happened to me. Like two of the ones that stand out in my mind of like other people's I read was like a girl who thought her mom came into her room, but was like a black silhouette and then started poking her ticklishly, but then poking her, like hurting her, and she couldn't move. And that's creepy. There's also a guy who talked about falling asleep with his door open. And in his sleep paralysis state, he saw an old creepy woman, not like an old woman, but like she just like was very creepy, old Victorian type stuff.
Yeah.
That she was standing in his hallway staring at him, and he was trying really hard to move. So, and the second that he was able to move and wake himself up, she stuck her arms out and ran at him screaming.
That's out of a horror movie.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm very lucky that I have not experienced what some other people have. Now, my third and final experience was actually when I first moved to New York City. And I was living in a kind of, my first apartment was kind of like this old rundown building. We were actually, out of 5 apartments in the building, we were the only apartment with people in it. So it was very sketch. Landlord was also a sketchy dude. Old brick building, not in the safest part of town. So what happened was it started off in a dream, and I was in a church, and me and some other people I knew, we were getting up from the pews to leave, and it's daytime. There was light pouring in through the windows. And as I got up to leave, I realized my shoe was untied, and I said, hold on, guys, I'll catch up. I've got to tie my shoe. So I sat back down in the front pew, and I bent over to tie my shoe. And while I'm tying my shoe, it was like a figure stepped in front of me. So I saw the bottom of a white cloak by my shoe. And I go to look up, and this figure is like 7 or 8 feet tall. It's very, very tall. And at first, when it stands in front of me, it was like a silhouette with the light from the windows coming from behind it, like an angel. And it was wearing white, and it had this light. And at first, if you're like thinking it's an angel, in fact, it's telling me that it's an angel. It's trying to convince me that it's an angel. But as the more I look at it, the more this feeling of dread starts to set in. And I'm like, this is wrong. This isn't right. This something's wrong here. And the more I think it, the more the energy changes, and it grabs me and it holds me up like this. And it's got me by the throat, and it's holding me by my throat. And as I'm choking, I start to go in and out of being awake and asleep. So I'm in my bed, almost having a seizure. I'm like twitching, and my eyes are opening. And it's so freaky. I can still remember it. I'd open my eyes and I could see my room in front of me, but then I'd close my eyes and I would see that thing in front of me. So it was this kind of back and forth. I'm trying to move my body and I can't. I'm trying to wake myself up and I'm choking. And as I'm going in and out of opening my eyes, I notice a black figure at the end of my bed in real time in my room. So then when I finally am able to pull myself up, I like sat up in my bed, like gasping. I was like, like that. And I see the black mass at the end of my bed, and I watched it. It was like from floor to ceiling, and I watched it walk out of the wall out of my room. And that was my last and final experience. Now you might be wondering, Samantha, how did you know that was a demon? So not only was that such a odd and interesting experience, a little bit different than my other sleep paralysis, but I had a roommate who grew up, she's Filipino. She grew up there, and her grandmother had all these like superstitions and folklore, and she knew just a lot of things. And I'm explaining to my dream to my roommates when this particular roommate tells me like, oh, I know what happened to you. You experienced a demon. And I'm like, how the fuck do you know that? And she was like, well, same thing used to happen to me when I was a kid. I would see what I thought were angels, but they were demonic in nature. And my grandmother was there when these things would happen. And my grandmother was the one who explained it to me. Basically, demons will disguise themselves as angels to try to get to you. So but you'll know by the feeling that it's wrong. And so this is like a thing that happens to other people as well. So basically that's kind of how I found out a little bit more of what I'd experienced. And yeah,
that is insane.
That's the last time I had a sleep paralysis experience. I had a fourth kind of very minor one when the second year I was dating Mark, where it felt like somebody, while I was sleeping, grabbed my ankle and tried to pull a little bit, but there just wasn't enough power to it. So that's why I really just say I had 3. Mark is not sensitive like I am. Like, I'm a very sensitive person, but Mark is kind of like, you remember, I hate to reference this, but it's fitting. Remember Bella's power in Twilight?
No.
Bella has this thing called a shield, which like goes like around her mind, and she can put it around her body and other people. That's kind of what Mark feels like to me, is like a shield. Like when I'm around him, I don't have as many experiences. It's kind of like he cancels them out. Even his dad died in his house, and his dad, like many of his friends have said, I've seen the ghost of your dad in your house. And the first year we were dating, I saw his dad. But he was like, why is it that everyone sees him but me, and I live here? Like, he just kind of, it doesn't really have that paranormal stuff happen to him.
Okay.
Versus if it's like me or me with certain other people, I'm very sensitive to it, so it's more likely to happen.
That makes a lot of sense.
Well, I'm happy he's your shield and blocks this shit. I mean, your first 2 experiences were in your parents' house, right?
Yeah, they were in the guest room of my parents' house.
Has anyone in your family seen, felt, experienced
anything on that level?
From what I understand, no, because I'm kind of the only person in my family who's into this sort of stuff to begin with. So, I mean, my older sister loves Harry Potter, but I mean, she doesn't really stay in that room too often because she's older, she's married, they're in their own house.
Yeah.
So as far as I know, nobody's really said anything, but I have had other odd ghostly experiences in that house, and I've tried to explain it to my mom. I've even pointed out the fact that since my little brother was born, one of the cats in the house has always slept, if not next to him, then across him. And I'm like, that kind of feels like to me that the cat is protecting my little brother.
Yeah, definitely.
But otherwise, nobody has ever really felt or experienced anything themselves. I'm so lucky.
Damn.
And I told my mom too. I told my mom about those experiences in the downstairs room.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, only that would happen to you, Sammy Sam.
Thanks, Ma.
She's also, I should side note here, my mom and her part of the family, because she's my stepmom, they're all very Catholic.
Okay.
Yeah. Whereas like my dad and myself weren't really raised in any particular religion.
Okay. Did she suspect a demon or the devil, or?
She just thinks if anything, it's a ghost.
But as we've talked about on this podcast, that's not a freaking
ghost.
Or that like I had like a bad dream, because I mentioned I'm in the dream first and I kind of get pulled out of it.
Mm-hmm.
She thinks the whole thing could be a dream. Which I can understand how she, as she doesn't have experiences like that.
Yeah.
So I can understand why she would think that. She's also very logical mind. She's a math person.
Oh. Fucking people of numbers.
Have you ever had any sleep paralysis experiences?
Nothing on that level. I
mean, the only thing, and I don't even know if it's sleep paralysis, but when you're asleep and you know you're asleep and you want to wake up but you can't. I've had that happen to me a fair amount of times, and I've read the best thing to do is to just go back to sleep. Even though you know you're awake, it's just like you're sleeping, but you kind of just close your eyes in your dream, and then I literally just felt like I was floating off.
Huh.
I knew I was sleeping, and I could not wake up to save my life. It was the weirdest thing.
That I have never experienced. I'm always very like deep in my dreams, or like I'll have dreams that kind of play out as long kind of stories. I've had kind of the reverse of that, where you remember in The Haunting of and this is part of what spooks me too. You remember in The Haunting of Hill House when they're like they talk about like an ocean, like it's spilling over, your dreams spilling into reality?
Yeah.
I've experienced that. Like where it's like my dreams, or like, in Nightmare on Elm Street, she pulls the dreams into reality.
Mm-hmm.
I have experienced that, where it's like I was dreaming and then I pulled myself so fast out of it. Then all of a sudden I see something from my dream in my room, almost like you're hallucinating, but it's like it got pulled out. And I remember one of the clearest ones I ever had, where I oh my God, it put me in like a cold sweat. I was like, what the fuck? Was when I was in high school. I was still a teenager, and I pulled myself out of my dream. And I don't usually do this. It's not a common thing, but like I got up so fast, and I saw, at first it was like a black wolf on the side of my bed, and its face was level with my face, and I could feel the heat of its breath on my face, and I could feel the water from like it's like saliva, like I could feel like that in its breath. And then I turned to look away from it, and there was a boy standing in the middle of my room, and the wolf went over to the boy's side, and the boy looked up from the wolf directly at me, making eye contact, and the only thing he said to me was, "You think." And then he turned around, him and the wolf, and walked through the wall. And that's the only thing he said to me was, "You think." Yeah.
Okay.
Tell me that wouldn't put you in a fucking cold sweat. Like, what does that mean? I'm almost 30 years old. I still don't know what that means.
You think.
But that, just as a note to our viewers, that is not a demon experience. As far as I know, that was something else.
Yeah. That I'm not. Oh my God.
I know, and I always have very odd experiences related to my dreams, which I'll probably talk more about when we get a little bit more into discussing witchcraft in a later episode.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have anything else you want to note about demons? Or sleep paralysis?
You've had 3 incidents. Has anything, I mean, you talked about the 4th time, but those aside, nothing else really? Like, you've solid sleeper?
Yeah, nothing else has really happened to me. I don't have nightmares either. Nightmares have never been a common thing with me ever my entire life, even despite all the horror movies I watch. But I think part of the reason that I haven't experienced sleep paralysis since then is that while I was falling into my deepest depression, I was doing whatever I could to work on my own mental illness and to help myself to stay alive and find a way to not necessarily be happy, but be okay. And so, for the longest time, I was building myself up to be okay. And then from being okay, I moved up to where I am now in my life, which is I am happy, I'm content, I'm in a much better place. I still, obviously have depression. It's something you can never fully get rid of. You're going to have to deal with it for the rest of your life. But I have better tools to help me deal with it now than I did then.
Well, good for you for getting out of that horrible darkness and being like, yo,
Hey.
8-foot man, no strangling me, bitch.
Yes. No more scary sleep paralysis, guys, silhouettes, or demons.
That's on another level. That's insane. Sorry you had to go through that.
Well, again, I feel like I lucked out compared to a lot of other people and what happens to them, which again, as a reminder to anyone listening, if you want to hear more sleep paralysis stories, The Nightmare on Netflix. It's a documentary and it goes into other people's stories, experiences, and kind of similar themes that seem to happen among different people with sleep paralysis. Like a lot of times they say we see the same characters. There's also a horror movie called Mara, which is about sleep paralysis.
Okay.
I don't personally think it's a good film, but feel free to watch it.
I mean, like I said before, The Haunting of Hill House, how they dealt with sleep paralysis. I mean, your first experience when you were getting pushed down, like, was there a duration for how long until you were able to throw that elbow?
Now, see, that's the other interesting thing is when you're experiencing it, you don't have any concept of time. So you don't know how long this was happening or how long it took for you to regain control. Yeah.
That just makes it so much worse. Like,
So much worse.
it was 15, 20 seconds. It could have been 5 seconds. It could have been a minute. Like,
yeah. And I mean, surprisingly, out of all 3 of them, you would think that the demon one would scare me the most, considering how that played out with me. But I honestly, the second one is what got to me more, was just the idea of something walking into the room, coming up to me, and trying to snap my neck. And like waking up that way. It was waking up to that motion in the bed and nobody being in the room, as opposed to like waking up from the demon and seeing it leave the room. It felt different, more ominous the second time.
yeah, I mean, waking up whiplashed. Fuck.
I would almost describe the silhouette. Okay, you remember the movie Pan's Labyrinth?
Yes.
You remember the guy with the long fingers and like the bald head and he had like the eyes in his hand?
Yeah.
Okay, imagine that, Not like all saggy, but like imagine that silhouette, fingers and everything, all like a grayish white, or like a kind of more on the gray side, and no eyes in the hands or anything, no facial features at all, just a flat face like Slender Man.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I saw.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit more Demogorgon-ish.
It's the Demogorgon. Makes so much more sense. We know that you are an artist. Have you ever drawn or painted what
No.
you saw?
I mean, I'd consider it, but at the same time, I was like, I never got such a clear enough look that
Mhm.
it's too hazy to put into a drawing. Like, I see it in my mind,
Yeah.
but to put it on paper, I couldn't do it. I better paint a picture with my words and descriptions.
Okay.
Maybe like a police sketch artist would have a better chance.
Would that interest you or would that like creep you out? Like, no, like I've dealt with that motherfucker once. I don't want to deal with.
Neither here nor there, actually. It doesn't
Okay.
interest me, but I also like if it happened, I wouldn't care either. Like a lot of people would think because I saw those things that I'm therefore terrified of the things I saw, but I'm not. I wasn't then either. Like the experience was scary, sure, but for me in particular, who's been watching horror movies and obsessed with horror since I was 4 years old, to me it was like it was almost, I don't know what word I'm looking for here. Um, Comforting maybe, because I knew what I was dealing with. Versus
Interesting.
somebody who would experience something like that and wouldn't know the first clue of what just happened to them. I did know. Like I experienced that and I immediately knew what I experienced. So I wasn't terrified.
Okay. Knowledge is power, as always.
Yeah, I had like basically a baseboard to jump off of.
Mm-hmm. Because there's an artist, I'm sorry, I cannot think of your name. I will find you and put you in the description. But he like suffered from, having these horrible nightmares his whole life, but he's also an artist. So he recreates them in photos.
I know who you're talking about.
And the shots are amazing. Like he has a very vivid memory of them. So in order to take control of what happened in these nightmares, he took these amazing photos, and it's like, yeah, that was my nightmare. Like chained up like on a bed in a river. Like fuck.
Question for you then, as someone
Yes.
who has never really experienced sleep paralysis or demons, do you have a stance on whether or not you believe in them, and does hearing other people's stories affect that stance?
I mean, when I hear other people's stories, it only reaffirms, you know, seeing isn't believing. Like you can have belief in something. Yeah, I've never seen a UFO do. I know that's a whole other Pandora's box, but like I think anything's possible, really.
Right? I usually tell people when they ask me what I believe, I always tell them it's a shorter list if you ask me what I don't believe.
Yeah.
Because there's not much that like I won't believe, because we just live in a universe of infinite possibilities. Like I don't deny the existence of aliens or angels or demons or fairies or ghosts or any of it. I think that it's all possible to exist in entirely. It could all exist.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. And no one has any definitive proof on yes or no. That's
Exactly.
another thing. That also is part of my scientific approach to it as well, is like scientific method, you do what you can to prove it or figure it out.
Mhm.
Like everybody tries to prove these things real, they try to find evidence, and you have different people's experiences as a sort of evidence. But basically, like, that's how I feel. If you have no definitive yes or no, therefore it is open to interpretation.
Absolutely. I mean, I just feel like people love to be identified by something. and it's like, science and faith. And I have friends who are devoted to science, and all religion's bullshit, and vice versa. I'm like, guys, it's all together. Just because, like, I know some people would probably hear your story and be like, oh, well, you were hallucinating something, or your depression manifested an illusion. That could have been. But to simply, shoo this, oh, like, demon thing, I think it's very possible. From you damn near having a seizure, going back and forth and seeing something at the end of your bed. I mean,
exactly. And like, I don't expect every person I tell that story to immediately believe what I say, but like, I was there. I was in my body. I know what happened, but like, kind of going off of what you were just saying though, is it kind of reminds me of science used to be called magic until we proved it real. So, magic is basically just science that we haven't figured out yet, is the way you use it. And, also trying to go back and forth on, was this real, was this not, kind of reminds me in Stranger Things, when he's talking about the curtain and he goes, some people are like you and me, they want to know what's behind the curtain, and there are some people who don't. They like the comfort of the curtain. They don't want to know what's out there. They don't want to know about things like aliens and alternate universes and ghosts and demons. They don't want to know about those things. Their lives are simple without that knowledge. And so I think a lot of people who kind of write off the more logical, either, they haven't really experienced that in their life, or they kind of just, they like the curtain, they like reality, they like what they know, and they don't need to know more beyond that. Versus us Fox Mulder type people who are like, the truth is out there.
I'm ripping that curtain down. Show me.
Exactly. You have your Scullys and your Mulders.
Are you a Scully or a Mulder? Leave in the comments below. I feel like if you're listening to this, though, I think
you're more likely to be a Mulder if you're listening to the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or you could be a little bit of both. I feel like I'm a little bit of both.
I think that's the safest approach. Once again, don't be too far to one side. It's equilibrium, baby. Equilibrium.
More fun in the middle.
Exactly. Any other stories, comments about the demons, about sleep paralysis? Fun facts.
That pretty much sums up my current knowledge of demons. Of course, I, like you were mentioning earlier in the episode, I do look for more. And when I say I look for more knowledge, I mean more like the historical context, not so much the pop culture context.
Oh, of course. Yeah,
we've already got plenty of pop culture ideas. I'd be interested to learn more of the history and what people think are really demons out there.
Very quickly, I got a book last year and I didn't get through all of it. It's a very short book, and it's like Confessions of an Exorcist. Actual priest within the Catholic Church just writing about his experiences.
Ooh, that sounds like that Reddit thread I mentioned about the Forest Service guy.
Yes. The reason why I'm gonna go back to it, because I do want to finish off, what he has to say. I think he has a few books, but he was talking about, how you can be susceptible to demons, but it's from a very conservative Catholic. So it's like, if you have a tattoo, the devil will come for you. If you drink beer, if you like if you like horror movies, and I'm like, I just checked off
I know. If this, I would probably be considered to like one for exorcism, or like what people have said, like in the 1950s, I would be put in a mental asylum for the things I like and believe.
Yeah.
Or I'd be a witch at the Salem witch trials. I would be burned. Someone said, like, on Tumblr, someone was like, are you really living your life right if you wouldn't be burned as a witch during the Salem witch trials?
Jeez. With would the Spanish Inquisition be knocking at your door? Oh my good. Ugh. Tolerance, people.
Is the
Tolerance.
demon looking to possess you?
Oh, and I love that we're filming this at night and gotta go to bed soon.
Right. Again, do not watch the nightmare documentary before you have to go to bed.
Good tip for us all. Well, Sam, thank you so much for sharing all of that. Very strong of you. I mean, you went through a shit time. You had a couple of visitors, but you beat the bastards in the end. So,
Thank you.
congrats.
And again, I will be talking more about the actual haunted house I grew up in and those experiences in one of our final episodes.
Oh, cannot wait for
Please
that.
stay tuned for that, everyone.
And special shout out to, and I hope I get this name right. Bubs.
Bubs.
Bubs, you the real MVP. I mean, you go down a mountain and Sam's just like, "Ah, I have a scratch." EMTs are like, are you fucking kidding me?
I mean, I feel like I deserve the shout out on that one too. Bubs saved my life, but man, how immortal am I to walk away from that with a scratch and be like, death, you tried today, didn't you?
Sam, are you immortal?
I do. I always say I'm immortal. I say it a lot. I'm immortal.
You've talked about a lot of things, you know, when we're not recording. I mean, I feel like you had like the fountain of youth, like somewhere on like the premises of your haunted house.
Maybe. I definitely have a future plan to because I don't look too different from what I did when I was younger.
Mhm.
I'm gonna print out old pictures of me in sepia tone and I'm gonna give them to my future children and be like, this was 1912. I've been around so long, you have no idea. I'm gonna like really, really just set it in that I'm immortal with my children. Yeah.
Life goals.
For other future children and concerned teachers to approach me about my children spreading the gospel that I'm immortal. I'll become a local legend in the suburban neighborhood.
Because that's just what, you know, suburban parents want. Their children bringing the gospel of Sam home. But mama, she was there during World War I. What?
I mean, I also can't wait for like, you know, like that character in a movie or a TV show that everyone always runs to ask for information about what's happening in a spooky situation. Like in Selena, it would be Ambrose, who is my favorite character, by the way. You know, he deserves a lot for everything he does. But I would essentially become the Ambrose of the neighborhood. I would have children I don't even know running to me over spooky situations. It would be amazing.
I mean,
I would become the old crone.
Is she evil? Is she good? She's both.
Yeah.
I mean, to be Ambrose, I mean, props to you, because when something goes wrong, you need to take the smallest detail and be like, oh, of course, it's this demon from this time period, and this is why he's back. I'm like, Ambrose, you got that off a hair, and you know exactly what to do. I hope my children get to know the old crone.
Or well, I'll still look the same if I'm immortal, you know. But cheers to being the Ambrose of future demon knowledge.
And yes, this year I'm studying up on my demonology, getting my demon dictionary. It exists, and I'm gonna be just learning about them. And
So if anybody else has any things that they love or know about demons, maybe it's an experience, a book you read, movie you saw, please feel free to mention it to KPM.
Or it's Am So Spooky. I mean, just let us know, because we're clearly very excited about this, and we want to know more. I want to ID yours.
ID?
Yeah. I want,
like the demon I dealt with?
Yeah. Motherfucker.
Who even knows?
Bitch.
That's its ID, is its bitch. Bitch
I know.
Mist. Let's call it bitch mist, because it was like a black mist, so like we'll call it bitch mist.
I know your name, demon. It's bitch. Motherfucker. All right, guys. Thank you so much for being with us. Please check out last week's episode if you have not already, and that's the best of paranormal. And next week's episode when we talk about spirits of different cultures. So that one I'm very excited about. I love going into these episodes not knowing all that much and just learning. I'm just like you guys with just my own tidbits of information. Sam, you are a professor. You are Ambrose. You're just Ambrose now. Like that's
Ambrose. I love it.
Thank you for being with us. Thank you for sharing. And guys, tell us your stories. I'm very interested. That is it for me, Sam.
That's it for me.
Thank you all, and we will see you next week. Have a good one, guys.